certainly the election years are the hardest to navigate in terms of knowing who's going to be running again, who you're going to be running against, whether councillors are running for their same seat or maybe running for mayor. And so it is the most turbulent time in silly season for team building, but really important that as councils have just gotten through their budget, have had to do some compromising and really tried to have a team effort getting through budget and now looking ahead to the election. It's really important to maintain that sense of teamwork and that keeping forefront. We're still all here for the community and trying to make good decisions and good governance.
Welcome to Municipal Affairs. I'm Christopher Brown. Now, as we step into a new year, it's a season of fresh beginnings, a perfect opportunity for municipalities to recalibrate, reflect, and renew. Many councils and administrations are embracing this moment to strengthen bridges between their two respective teams, ensuring alignment on shared goals, and take stock of the service level inventories to better serve their communities and municipalities. Now, in the spirit of this renewal, we're thrilled to welcome today's guest, Trina McCarroll, an accomplished facilitator with McCarroll Consulting. Trina brings her expertise in facilitation, leadership, and organizational development to help municipality, like yours, navigate the complexities of collaboration, planning, and performance improvement. So get ready for an insightful conversation to kick off 2025 about how you can make the most of this pivotal time of year to set your municipality up for success for 2025. Across Canada, our cities, towns, villages, and rural communities are alive with stories waiting to be told. Stories of innovation and economic development, resilience in the face of the housing challenges, and the financial hurdles municipalities overcome every day. At the Cross Border Network, we bring these stories to life. From coast to coast to coast, we're connecting Canadians to the issues shaping our communities and showcasing the people working tirelessly to make them thrive. With your support, we can expand our reach, amplify more voices, and shine a light on the challenges and triumphs of municipal life. For as little as $3.99 a month, you can help us grow and continue sharing the stories that matter most. Join us today and be part of this important mission. Together, we can tell more stories, build stronger communities, and make a real difference. Support the Cross Border Network now. Visit www.crossborderinterviews.ca today. Trina, thank you so much for sitting down with me and talking about this important issue about team building and service levels in the context of municipalities, because we are in, as municipal leaders like to call it, silly season in Alberta right now. And silly season, for outside of who don't know the context, is an election year. And it's the perfect time to talk about this because this is the year that most team building is put under pressure, when service levels are put under pressure as well. So from your perspective, how important is it to have a good team going into an election year when you're looking at the municipal realm as a whole?
Yeah, certainly the election years are the hardest to navigate in terms of knowing who's going to be running again, who you're going to be running against, whether councillors are running for their same seat or maybe running for mayor. And so it is the most turbulent time in silly season for team building, but really important that as councils have just gotten through their budget, have had to do some compromising and really tried to have a team effort getting through budget and now looking ahead to the election. It's really important to maintain that sense of teamwork and that keeping forefront. We're still all here for the community and trying to make good decisions and good governance throughout the next few months, even as we're heading into the election, and wanting to finish the term well to set the next council up for success. So I think it's important just to keep it forefront, that keep it civil, keep it respectful, no matter what we going into for differences of opinion on election platforms. But it's really important to keep that teamwork and the sense of relationships intact heading into the election.
As someone who's worked with municipalities in your job, in your consulting job, and as a facilitator, what are some of the common challenges that council and administration face when trying to align that shared values and shared goals? Because I hate to sort of broach the political question already, but
Mhm.
there's usually two opposing viewpoints on that shared goals because one's looking at it through an elected official lens and
Yeah.
one's looking at it as an administration lens.
Mhm.
So, how important and what are some of the common challenges that you find when dealing with municipalities and trying to line those two opposing factors up to
Yeah.
make one shared goal?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Certainly the two sides of the hourglass that everyone's familiar with in terms of council's role up top, setting long-term direction, long-term strategy for the municipality, and then that certainly that a finite point where administration, where the CAO meets council, and then the CAO is trying to direct administration through operations and trying to implement long-term strategies into medium and short-term goals. So there are a
Is
lot
that
of
hard?
challenges.
Is
Oh,
that hard in 2024? Like, just take it,
yes.
take outside the election year.
Yeah.
Is it hard to align those two opposing factors?
I think it's really the hardest is to get agreement on what those goals are. Yeah, certainly, in terms of what is the highest priorities and what is going to deliver the most value for the community, because often they're all good ideas. No one's really throwing out left tangents that aren't, that are ridiculous. Everyone has some really good ideas and things that are important to them and to what they've heard from different sections of the community. So it's really not a matter of good ideas and bad ideas, but it's trying to prioritize what does the community need most and where can we direct our resources to make progress towards our most important goals. And so I think it really is tough for council. I mean, with, between 7 to 11 different members with different ideas of trying to get alignment within council and then alignment with their CAO and the rest of administration on how we're going to do that. And so it is really, that's the toughest part, where the rubber hits the road of how to direct our resources to choosing the most important strategic priorities that we're going to advance.
I've done about 200 and some odd interviews with municipal leaders, actually over 300, I should say,
Okay.
300 municipal leaders from across Canada. And the one common theme that I hear from those leaders is we're very type A personalities. We want to take
Mm-hmm.
control and we want to move forward. I
Yeah.
want to talk about that team building from a council perspective for a
Yeah.
second, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
With so many, and I'm going to just use their words, type A personalities, how do you bring people into a understanding that
Mm-hmm.
it's not person A versus person B, it's not person
Mm-hmm.
C versus person D, but it's also at the end of the day, it's team whatever your municipality
Yeah.
is called. Because I can
Yeah.
imagine that is probably the most challenging obstacle, even 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, the first day of a council meeting.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like right on that you said that. I was just speaking at a post-secondary institution last week about teamwork and um, how in our careers and in all the different groups that we're part of, and certainly including council and administration, often the hardest part is the teamwork. And so a lot of subject matter experts have their areas of expertise that they know how to do work really well, but it's the teamwork that gets to be the hardest part. And so I think I've just really encouraged my councils, and especially in an election season when everyone's maybe running on platforms and running on issues that they're very passionate about, that it's a team sport. Running a municipality is a team sport, and we all have to play a role in that. And we can't advance the priorities that we're passionate about alone. And so I really try to encourage the counselors and administration of you need to have a team approach in order to make progress. And so that's actually your first order of business, in my opinion, is not to get down to business the moment council's formed and the moment I know everyone really wants to make progress on what their platform that they've run on, but you need to develop a sense of team first. And you can do that by working together collaboratively, but you need to have in your forefront of your mind, how can we become a strong team that really understands one another, listens to one another, values each other's perspectives. That needs to be first order of priority so that you can make faster, wiser, better decisions together for the whole community and for the whole municipality.
But we're human.
Yeah.
And I like sunshine and roses, but at the
Yeah.
end of the day, I've been watching municipalities for a few years now, and I can
Yeah.
tell you that's not always the case.
It's
So
tough. Yeah.
how do you I shouldn't say what advice, but
Yeah.
what do you see as the biggest obstacle in getting to the point where you've just talked about
Mm-hmm.
in putting those differences aside and just working for the common good?
Mm-hmm.
Because we are seeing code of conducts being thrown around left, right, and center in the province of
Yeah.
Alberta, even across Canada, I should say.
Yeah.
So how do we get, I shouldn't say we, because
Mm-hmm.
how do counselors take the personalities out of decision making?
Mm-hmm. I think the awareness when they're even considering running. And I know a lot of municipalities are doing more information sessions before and earlier than in the past to give a sense of here's the real scope of the job. And it really is a team sport in terms of governance, in terms of setting long term direction. You can't do it alone as an individual. And so, depending on the backgrounds that counselors are coming from, they might be used to, running the show or making decisions. And, in 2 weeks, it's implemented. And so, really, a stronger awareness and, a deep understanding of how long these processes take, why they take, setting policies, setting long-term direction, getting public input, some of the rationale behind that of setting up for good governance, and then really trying to help them understand that if you want to see your priorities acted upon, you need to do it together. And again, I've a really big emphasis on that, respectful workplace culture, even when we're dealing with tough interactions from the staff, but that council is a huge role model for the rest of the organization of what type of behavior is acceptable and what type of behavior is encouraged and rewarded. And I think just having that awareness as a leader for the community and for the organization that you have to work together, and we're not going to make much progress if everyone's fighting all the time. And I think that might be, if sharing some of the horror stories and some of the ways that councils can really get off track, that detracts from getting business done. It takes so much time, it takes so much energy, and it makes decisions take longer when there's always fighting and bickering. And so really helping them understand differences of opinion, for sure, different perspectives, different priorities, healthy debate is all part of good governance, but relentless conflict and mistrust, really, always going to bat against either administration or against other counselors, really slows down progress. So you can either help the municipality move forward by getting along and being a good team member, or you can slow us down by always engaging in conflict and unhealthy behaviors.
The relationship between administration and council is probably one of the most challenging relationships that councils have to build. Because
Mm-hmm.
hypothetically, you and I both know, council only has one staff member. They can only technically direct one staff member, that CAO. And that CAO has two opposing views that he has to take, or he or she has to take. They have to take the council's opinion and they have to administer it through the administration. But we live in a society where the demands on administration is becoming so overwhelming right now.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be talking about service levels here in a few
Yeah.
seconds,
Yeah.
but budgets are getting tighter. Staff is not there because of external factors, whether it be harassment from the general public, harassment internally, harassment from council. Not saying it happens, but it does happen,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
unfortunately. The
Yeah.
CAO has to build that relationship between those two opposing sides. And I shouldn't say opposing side, two different sides, I will put that
Yeah.
way.
Yep.
What do you see as the role of the CAO in building that strong foundational uh, relationship so that way that shared goal has to literally go through them because they are the conduit between the two
Yes.
different
Yeah.
teams?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure. So certainly I think the CAO role is one of the toughest professions out there. It
Uh-huh.
it yeah, across all my work with public sector organizations, certainly the CAO is unique and yeah, really challenging. So admit that upfront that it's hard, but I think it is possible to build healthy relationships between council and CAO. I think with a lot of intentionality is the way I really like to encourage my clients to work through these processes in terms of um, being upfront, right? Right when counselors are considering running to when they're elected. I really like to, even before council orientation with all of the official documents and all of the official processes that they need to go through, I really encourage council and CAO to have some informal time together to get to know one another as humans, as you mentioned, first and foremost, and establish a sense of care and a sense of common care about the municipality. And I think that's a given when people run for council and also for CAOs. Everyone cares about the community, and that can really translate into a lot of passion. We need to move that into some common passion, and really that we want to establish a sense that we're all here for a purpose. We want to work together for that. And so I really like to have some informal time with, whether it's a supper or whether it's a welcome event, in terms of getting to know each other, why they ran, why they work here, what are some of their dreams for the community, and how they might contribute their strengths to the group. So I really like to take that human centered approach right up front, and for the CAO to either have an outside facilitator or to have it arranged internally of getting that kind of sense of team, whether you call it team chemistry or a team gelling. It's important, and that sense of trust that you can build in moments by moments over your time working together to really kick it off on as positive note as you can, and recognizing that there's also history involved too, likely from some counselors going back before. So I think the CAO can play a big role in setting that relationship up for success, and then also really being open to a lot of feedback. And we talked about that at Alberta Municipalities in some of the CAO sessions, where getting feedback from council and council taking their role really seriously and thoughtfully about giving the CAO regular performance reviews and regular feedback in what's going well, what is maybe that they want to see improved. So I think that intentionality to the relationship, and recognizing that CAOs are really hard to recruit and really hard to keep in the role. So councils really number one job is to have a good productive relationship with their CAO, and then together you can do a lot of good work for the community. But without that, you're really going to be slowed down and not make much progress.
Now, the role of the CAO is to be directed by council of what they want to see happen.
Mm-hmm.
But as someone who's worked in municipalities before on the administration side, I know that there is, I don't want to say disrespect because it's a harsh word.
Mm-hmm.
I want mistrust, let's put it that way, that the direction that council is going might not always align with what the policies, the bylaws have
Oh
to be.
yeah.
And the CAO has to take the directions. They have to give their opinion,
Yeah.
and then administration has to go out and do it. And we
Yeah.
talk about building that relationship between the administration, and I say that as the royal administration,
Mm-hmm.
all of it,
Yeah.
with council. You talk about that one-on-one conversation with CAO and through a facilitator. Do you believe it's important for council to know who the administration is as well and voice their opinions or voice their goals to the entire administration and not just the CAO, or should they just follow the rules and only direct the CAO? Because
Yeah.
there's a it's a fine line, but
Yes.
it's one that a lot of administration says
Yeah.
they don't know what they're doing, and council says, why aren't they doing what we want?
Yeah, yes, definitely a fine line, as you said, certainly a fine line. And I think the fine line is easier to walk, the better relationship you have with your CAO. I think when the relationship with the CAO is strained, it magnifies even more so to the rest of administration because it's never hidden. Everyone knows when there's tension and when things are strained. So definitely, I think even more of a reason to have a strong relationship with your CAO, because I think in that case, you can work to build relationships with council and the rest of administration. I think that's really healthy and helpful. Often for administration, say the executive team, the general managers, often to hear directly from council, whether it's workshops and strategic planning. And I think when there's a really healthy relationship where everyone understands their roles, say if it's council that's doing their strategic planning and setting priorities and really wrestling with what do we want to prioritize, what needs to be lower in the priority list. Those are difficult conversations and challenging conversations to have. I think when there's a really healthy dynamic between council and administration, having the rest of the senior management team there is fantastic. So they can hear some of the debate, and then just making really clear about the roles. Is it time for their input, or maybe are they listening at certain components? We want to be careful that council has their time to speak and conceptualize and wrestle with their own thoughts before maybe muddying the waters with administrations. So it is a really delicate dance that you have to walk there and making sure that everyone is fulfilling their own roles in the governance system. But I think it's really helpful when the rest of the management team is able to hear and in possibly participate within building relationships with council and fully understanding some of the different criteria and different thoughts that they're trying to work through in terms of setting priorities. So I think it is helpful when you can have the rest of administration building relationship with council, with the caveat of only directions go to the CAO and making sure that those lines are carefully walked.
The administration takes their marching orders from council, and council sets the service levels that they
Mm-hmm.
want to see within the municipality. Now, like I said, I've
Yeah.
done enough of these interviews that I
Yeah.
know that there are some municipalities who have not done service level reviews, who
Mm-hmm.
just put it out there and then they walk away. Even during budget times, when they go through budgets, they want directors to bring the budgets to them, and then they'll look over and say, okay, we'll sign off, or we'll have some questions about X, Y, and Z. But
Yeah.
literally, the service levels, we don't really want to get into the weeds of it, as you call. Who should be asking for a service level review? Is it the CAO, or is it the directors, or is it council?
All of the above.
Really? Why?
Well, asking for a service level review, I like to call it a service level inventory
Okay.
and as the first step. So the way that I really like to approach it is this is a collaborative effort to understand our service levels first and foremost. I think sometimes jumping to service reviews can give it a negative connotation. And I think both with council and with administration and with the staff in that area, sometimes things like org reviews and things like service level reviews historically can bring some tension and some negative connotation. So I really like to call it service level inventories, and that it helps to bring us collective understanding about what services do we provide either across the entire organization or if you're doing a certain area, what services are provided, uh, on what authority. Is it legislation? Is it regulations for safety, or is it a council bylaw or a council policy? Or in many cases, honestly, it's just past practice that the supervisors in that area have done the best they can with the resources that they have, and they think they can get about this much work done with those resources, and they've done their best in most cases. And so there is a lack of understanding, a common understanding between council, senior management, and frontline supervisors and staff about what are we able to do in this area of work for the resources that we have, and is that acceptable to the whole organization and to council.
But
to the
but who
community.
makes that judgment? Because I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate
Yeah.
here, because council has a budget. They have to stick within that budget.
Hmm.
Administration has the responsibility to
Yeah.
go out and do that. But the only thing we have not touched on yet, and I'm going to
Yeah.
touch on it now,
Yeah.
is the human aspect of this, the
Okay.
resident aspect of this.
Yeah.
Because for a
Yeah.
service level that one person uses, they think that service is the best service that they need and it helps them get through their day. But
Yeah.
council looks at it through a financial number. So
Yeah.
how do you make sure that your service levels are at a level that you're comfortable with without
Hmm.
impacting the people in your community? Because
Yeah.
that is
That's the challenge. Yeah, that's the challenge. That is exactly the challenge. And often a lot of municipalities don't have service level inventories yet. They can be hard to do. They can be really hard to create, and especially if you're coming at it with the connotation of the service level review. So I like to come at it because I'm really big on workplace culture and on remembering the users, whether it's staff and whether it's end customers. So I really like to take a more positive approach to service level inventories where we're trying to get a
okay.
common understanding of what we do. That is the $1 million question is that user would love extremely high service levels, whether it's, can they do lane swim at 6 a.m. or can they do lane swim at 5 a.m.? Maybe they want to swim at 5 a.m., but council has to wrestle with how many hours a week can we have the aquatic center open, and then administration or senior managers work on, okay, we can have 5 a.m. on Tuesday and we can have 6 a.m. on Thursday, but the resident, of course, who wants to do lane swim every day at 5 a.m., that's their preference of service level, and council and senior administration have to do that resource allocation, which is the hardest part. And so I think for council to try to make service level and really to make resource decisions without understanding the service levels is where there's a disconnect. I really think that the service level inventory and the budget need to go hand in hand so that council, senior administration, and as well as the staff and end users at some point, at residents trying to understand service levels, is what are we providing and at what cost. And I think sometimes municipalities, they know the cost, we have budgets and mandated to, but they don't always know exactly what service levels are included so that they can have the debate that you said of, what service level is appropriate. And that's where allocating the resources gets the hardest. But I think you need that common understanding before you can set service levels. You need to have a common understanding between all the different parties.
So do you put the cart before the horse, or do you put the horse before the cart? Because
Yeah.
um, this is airing in January of 2025. Most
Yeah.
municipalities have gone through their budget cycles, or
Yeah.
they're just passing interim capital and operating budgets because they're
Mm-hmm.
waiting for the provincial budget that is
Yeah.
expected in February of 2025, as the premier
Mm-hmm.
has said. When should municipalities be doing this inventory? Is it first year of their council term? Is it the last year of their council term to set up the next council correctly? Is it
Yeah.
every year? Because I can, like you said, most municipalities
Yeah.
probably don't even know what a service level inventory is, or
Right.
why should I do it? So
Yeah.
when should they be
Yeah.
taking to part of this?
I think it really, in terms of the practical components of the first time developing a service level inventory, it is nice to do it off of budget season just for workload sake for your administration. So I've had really good success with that where you're doing it outside of budget season and you're trying to make a list of what are the services that we provide. And council usually has a decent general understanding of what services we provide, but what's required to go into delivering that service has been really eye-opening for a lot of my councils and a lot of my clients where, oh wow, that takes a lot of resources, not just money, but staff time and different components of operational requirements to deliver that level of service. And we're not going into debate with council about what they think should be done at the really operational level. There's definitely walking that fine line, but they are in charge of setting the service level. Just like most councils have like snow and ice clearing. That one's really, really common. They have a council policy on snow and ice clearing. Everyone understands the order of operations in that. But there's not many policies for the rest of municipal operations. So managers are doing the best they can with the bucket of money that they're provided for their area, but they haven't had a chance to talk with council about what really can we deliver. And I have really good discussions about what could we do if we had more resources. Also, what could we do if we had less resources in this area? It's not all sunshine and roses and we want to be all things to all people, because we don't have the resources for that. But even considering what different service levels we could have in this area is really helpful. And then council needs to make some decisions about setting service levels for each area throughout the municipality. So I think, yeah, it's really important. And I think to do it outside of budget season is really helpful. And then you can try to align it. Eventually, as soon as you get your service level inventory complete the first time, they should go hand in hand. The budget and the service level inventory should go hand in hand. Basically, what I describe it as: the budget is the numbers and the service level inventory is the words that describe what those budgets can do.
For those who are listening and for those who are watching this, while Trina was talking, she said that council understands the snow removal policy, and I air quoted understands because I've dealt with a lot of councilors who think that you could just change that policy up right
Right.
away and change that service level right away. So
Yes, exactly.
understandably, they're doing a lot of legwork on that statement there.
Exactly. And that whole mindset and that whole philosophy of long term governance and setting policies and following those as the best to your ability, where it's not just one off decisions each week and each month and each council meeting. It really is trying to encourage council to have that long term view, the governance role, setting direction and policies, not operational decisions month by month.
Before we wrap up, because we're touching on two big subjects here, and we're probably going to have Trina on a lot over the next few months because we have a few things that we want to chat with her about as we head into the next municipal elections here in Alberta. So hopefully she's willing to come back on the
For
show.
sure.
What are the trends that you're observing or will be watching for heading into this year of 2025? Because I can imagine as a consultant, as a facilitator, you're
Mhm.
watching trends to see where the community is going. What specifically are you going to be watching for about building that better relationship or even those service levels?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think one of the biggest is certainly the CAO recruitment and the CAO retention needs to be top of mind for counselors who are considering running again and who are deciding to run again, recognizing that it is so important to have a productive and healthy relationship with your CAO, and then a healthy organization from there in terms of workplace culture. So certainly employee engagement, employee retention, and recruitment is a really important trend that I think counselors should keep top of mind, because in order to provide the services that you want for your community, you need people who are trained and competent in their job to do that. And that's not a given in every municipality. A lot of municipalities are having, it's a challenge to recruit talented, trained, specific staff for each municipal operation. So I think counselors need to keep an eye on recruitment and retention for their CAO and for their staff as a really important trend that's coming ahead in 2025.
So where
Yeah.
can people learn more about you? Because I'm
Yeah.
assuming this conversation is not just one that you want to happen over a half hour Zoom conversation that we're doing
Yeah.
now, but where can people learn more about what you do and how can they get in contact with you?
Yeah, so my consulting firm is McCarroll Consulting, and we support municipalities and other public sector organizations with strategic planning, corporate planning, which is the implementation of the strategic plan and the whole cycle that goes into that. And there's performance metrics that go along with that, as well as culture is the other big component of really embedding long-term thinking and strategy into your culture so that you can have a really positive, strong workplace that delivers on big results for council's strategic plan, because I think all municipal employees really do want to better their community and to reach council's strategic goals. And so I really help a lot of my clients with intentionality behind their strategy and their culture. So you can check out, McCarrollconsulting.com, as well as really active on LinkedIn, and happy to interact with clients there and other organizations that might be looking for support.
So the link to both the website and Trina's LinkedIn profile, if you're watching this, in the show notes below. If you're listening to this on any of our platforms, scroll down. Well, if you're listening to this into a car, pull over and then scroll down on your phone, and then you can click on their website and the LinkedIn profile. Follow, reach out. I had a wonderful conversation with Trina. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you know that recently I put a call out because I lost a business card because we had a wonderful conversation in Red Deer, and I wanted to get her back on the show to have this conversation and
Yeah.
start this conversation a little bit. But before we go, I have one thing I need to ask. And
Okay.
you said you were potentially doing this, so now I need to put it on the record.
All right.
In our last conversation, you said you might be starting your own show and
Yes.
starting your own podcast. How's that going? I know we're in
Yes, that's right.
2025, but we're recording this in
Exactly.
2024. So
Yeah.
how's that going? Are we going to anticipate a launch in 2025?
Yes, that's great. Thanks so much. That's awesome. Yes, my team and I are working hard at getting strategy and culture as a podcast show up and running. And we'll be interviewing senior leaders from across Alberta. And there's a lot of really good, Harvard Business Review podcasts out there about good leadership principles, strategy, culture. But I think there's really missing some conversations about Alberta success stories, as well as, lessons learned. We all know leadership is hard and allocating scarce resources is hard. And so I really want to create a community where we can learn from one another and share more local stories about what we've learned and how we can help one another in the municipal sector. So you can look for strategy and culture. We're hoping to launch in the spring, and we've got some really great guests lined up, and we're going to really tackle the good, the bad, and the ugly about strategy and culture and how it can really be helpful for an organization when it has a lot of intentionality behind it.
So
Yeah.
when that
Thanks.
comes out, strategy and culture, check
Yeah.
for it in our social medias because we'll share the first episode
Sounds
because
good.
we
Thank
think
you.
it's a great way to get people out, and
Yeah.
more shows that talk about municipality issues is always a pleasure for me. Trina, I want to
Exactly.
thank you so much for sitting down with me today. Like I said,
Yeah.
this is the first of many conversations I
Perfect.
think you and I are going to have over the next few months. So
That's right.
thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Municipal Affairs in 2025. We are so pleased to be back, and we are gearing up for an amazing 2025 for season 4 of the show. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all of our latest episodes that are coming up this year. So until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll be back with a brand new episode in a few days of Municipal Affairs. Till then, everyone.